What a crazy game. Auburn finally wins it.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into a special live edition of Locked On Auburn. The Auburn Tigers take down the Georgia Bulldogs 70-68 in a game that just would not end. Georgia kept getting new life, yet Auburn still finds a way to hold on. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and of course, Darrell Dapprich joining us, the Montgomery radio legend himself. I already see a lot of Auburn folks frustrated with how close that was. But Darrell, to me, this is a team that was down their best player, as well as Dylan Cardwell, which plays the same position a large chunk of the game, and they went on the road and beat a ranked team in their arena. To me, like I don't think we need to really act like the sky is falling here. This is obviously a big win. Auburn was hurt, and clearly they found a way to win this game.
Yeah, there are 2 points to be made here. There's a big point, a big picture point, and that's what you just said. At the end of the day, Auburn gets another W, stays undefeated in conference against a team that beat Kentucky at home. They beat them on the road. That were ranked. This isn't a South Carolina or Texas win. This is against a ranked team. This is a quad one win with their best player still on the sidelines and their second best big hurting throughout the second half with cramps. So that's the most important thing. Lesser important things, though, is that I get that you won the game by 2, and if this was a back and forth affair all night, all day, and Georgia played well, you feel a little bit better about it. What I want to push back on is that Auburn should never even had themselves in this situation to have Georgia tying it with the 3 or tying it with the tip. It was careless. It was reckless. They lost concentration, and it's unacceptable for the number 1 team in the country under a minute to make some of the mistakes they made. That's okay. They know that. Bruce knows that. They'll clean it up. But it still needs to be pointed out that you do need to hit your free throws. The Pettiford miss and the Kelly miss ended up being huge. You cannot turn it over. I told you when we were watching it live, I do not like where Auburn's inbounding it here right now in the corner of the court. There was something about that I didn't like. Kelly gets it stripped. They have a 3 in the air to tie, a lot like New Mexico State in the NCAA tournament, it looked like. And then, you let them get a tip off. It really wasn't a tip. I guess he caught it and then kind of pushed it. But look, Auburn has to
great play design by Georgia at the end there. That should have
they do, but they got to clean some stuff up. I get all the positives you said are true, but also you shoot 32% in the first half. Auburn was very, very weak with the basketball today. A lot of turnovers, fumbling passes, not strong, not collecting rebounds, kind of some uncharacteristic stuff. But guys showed up in the second half other than Chaney. I think Chaney needed to have a better game than he did in the second half. But some guys that were a little quiet in the first did. And at the end of the day, what do I say, Zach? What do I say? I want you to show me the steak. I don't want you to show me how you cut up the cow, baby. And at the end of the day, they're undefeated, and they got a tough road win. And Georgia is a good team. They're not a great team, but they're a good team, and especially at home.
Yeah, and the guys that you needed to step up, obviously Chad Baker-Mazara did his thing, especially early. Denver kind of was, not quite as efficient as he normally is, but still got his 10 points. But you needed Chaney. You needed more Chaney Johnson, and he finished 1 of 9 in the game for 2 points. This was probably the worst game of the season for Chaney. Is that fair to say? I can't think of one where he's been worse.
You got to have him step up in Broom's absence. He didn't, and Auburn still won. So what it tells you is, even though we really love that front court, and Dylan didn't give much either. What did he end up points-wise? 4 points? I don't remember exactly, because when I come here, 2 points. So Chaney Johnson and the front court, your whole front court that starts for you got to combine 3 points, and you still win. So the back court, give them credit. That's what I'm telling you about how if you have good guards, they can pick up the slack. Now do the math on the backcourt real quick, if you wouldn't mind. Pettiford, Kelly, and Denver Jones combined.
Denver had 8. Miles had 13. Pettiford had 24.
And then you throw Chad Baker-Mazara in there, which he's really a backcourt player too, and that is why Auburn was able to win the game. Their backcourt picked up the slack. Would not been able to do this the last couple years. I'm just, if Broome and the bigs would have struggled, the guard play the last couple years, I do not see them picking up the slack like this team did. So yes, there's some frustration that my ears and my cheeks were red. Nervousness at the end of this game, but because they shouldn't have gotten that position. You make a couple free throws and nothing that matters in the last 10 seconds even is important. But again, there is something to be said, Zach, for winning games like this. When you play well, you make stupid mistakes, and you still find a way to win close games. I think there's something to be gained and said for that.
I agree. And like we said, I mean, Georgia had done a lot so far this year. They had been undefeated at home, including when they whooped on Kentucky. That was in Athens, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and I mean, Kentucky obviously dropped one today as well, but we all kind of think that Kentucky's a good basketball team, and Auburn goes in there shorthanded, plays arguably one of the worst games of their season, and they win. So to me, we all talked about this going into SEC play. Is like, look, you're gonna have some games that come down to it. More have come down to it against teams that I wasn't expecting. I'll be fully transparent on that, and they've all been on the road.
I was fully expecting this one. Fully expecting this to be a very.
You and I thought it was going to be like a 6 or a 7 point win, if I remember correctly.
And it should have been. Yeah. So, but I still felt like it was going to be a little bit of a contested dogfight battle because of the fact that Auburn's not playing South Carolina, Texas, LSU, someone that's unranked on the road. They're playing a ranked team on the road, and that makes it different from the two previous wins that you had. I guess I try to, as I get older, Zach, in life, the little things shouldn't add up to bother us as much as big pictures should be the most important. And if you would have told Darrell Dapprich on New Year's Day, hey, Auburn's going to start 5-0 in conference play, including 3-0 on the road, where you play 3 of your first 5 on the road. And oh, by the way, 3 of those or two and a half of those are going to be without Broome. I would have said, where do I sign? I'll prick my finger and sign it in blood. That's big picture.
Yeah.
Now you get a week to rest and sit back and enjoy the number 1 ranking still when Monday comes out. Enjoy other teams beating the crap out of each other in the SEC midweek while you're drinking a cocktail with your feet up. And then you have Saturday when game day comes and maybe your big guy comes back and you're back at home. That this loss could have monkeyed all that up. It could have jacked all that up.
I agree.
So
could have. It did not. It did not. Thankfully, it just once again, like we all talked about what Auburn did. Auburn's without Johni Broome, and they play 2 ranked teams, and you win.
Right.
Let's don't overthink this.
And it's okay. It's okay that we're a little bit upset at the things that happened in this game and down the stretch. That's what good basketball teams and their fan bases do. They don't sit or rest on their laurels and think everything is pie in the sky and just be excited to win. When you're at a certain level, you look at things and go, I wish that. Now, some of it can be unrealistic. It's not that the sky is falling, but it's okay to nitpick when you're the number 1 team in the country. Okay. We Auburn fans have earned that right. You're the number 1 team in the country. So you expect some things to get cleaned up. Just like I've said before, you clean them up with that W. And if this was a game against a team that hadn't won a conference game like Georgia was a couple years ago when they really sucked, I would feel completely different about it. This is a team that's now 2-3 in conference because they went to Tennessee and played the best team in America, but they were still ranked, and they're still, would they come in 6th in the conference, 7th in the conference? So it's a whole different flavor or feel to winning at Georgia this year than it is others.
Yeah, sure. But one thing that you said, like you're the number 1 team in the country, and you've earned the right to nitpick and expect more because this is a championship roster. I agree. Is it a championship roster without Broom long-term? I don't know. So like, was today a championship roster? Possibly. And hopefully we don't have to find that out because Janai Broom comes back soon. But the other side of the coin is this is college basketball at a high level. I mean, when you look at the top teams today, I mean, as we record this, number 7 Marquette is getting pounced by Xavier. We'll see how that finishes up. But then you've got, obviously Kentucky loses at home to Alabama. Alabama looked terrible against Ole Miss like 3 days ago. Houston, I thought Houston was going to lose to UCF. They were down by 8 at halftime. They ended up winning by a point. Creighton beat UConn. So like, let's just, this is we're all kind of in a new like tier when it comes to polling for your college basketball team, because this is the best Auburn team that I think we've ever seen. But some of this also is like surviving is part of it. Surviving is part of what the great teams do. You're not going to be able to blow out every team, especially ranked teams on the road. Are you frustrated with how they closed it out? Sure. And goodness gracious, I promise you, Coach Sproul is going to make them watch that over and over and over again this week to work on it. But surviving is what the great teams do, and that's how you win in March.
You're absolutely right. And I think what my comment about nitpicking is not an indictment on this fan base or this basketball team. Sure. It's actually to prove the point of how far it's come. And although survival is part of every aspect of this, and you need to learn survival skills to advance in the NCAA tournament, because so is frustration during the survival process. That's when you know you've arrived as a basketball program.
Yep.
There are a lot of people that would be out in the streets right now celebrating a 2-point win over a ranked team because, woo, our best player was out. Look at us. Look at us. It speaks volumes that Auburn's coaching staff and fan base right now isn't beating their chests.
Yep. All right. Who's your player of the game? Drop that in the live chat, as well as a lot of folks are bringing something up that I want to chime in on. There's no reason we should ever know a referee's name. I want to talk about that in just a second, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Can you imagine? I see your shirt, Darrell. Can you imagine wagering anywhere than FanDuel? I can't.
It's probably why I wore this shirt is to get is just to hit the point, drive the point home. Right?
Always do that. First whistle to the final drive. FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. I think we get playoffs games starting in just a few minutes. So head over.
That'll be fun. Watching those, having that W under your belt, right?
Yeah. Still is the number 1 team in the country. No question about it. The FanDuel app, it's easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keep every game exciting. So be sure to check that out. FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's at FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NFL, and of course, the Locked On Podcast Network. We'll jump into player of the game, because I actually think this is going to be a unique case where it's not a clear person. We shouldn't know Pat Adams' name.
Well, he's my player of the game.
He was definitely the most impactful. I don't think there's any question about it. And there's just certain professions, or even professions that are around spotlights, that we shouldn't know the people's name. And as a ref, or an umpire, or whatever you want to be, you should be as invisible as possible. And he just can't do it. He can't do it. And I don't think it was as lopsided as a lot of people do, but just the fact of the matter that we know who he is defeats the whole purpose of what a ref should represent.
Man, you're knocking it out of the park, because when I complain and I criticize and I dog Pat Adams, and everybody always tags me on X, Dap, we're getting Pat Adams. It's not because I think he necessarily calls games against Auburn or, against Auburn's opponents, favoring them. It's just what kind of official he is, period. It is, you paid $150 to come into the arena tonight to watch me. And look, this isn't, I don't want this to come across like it might seem. I'm just trying to give some insight. In the days that I called play-by-play for Division I basketball, Troy, Alabama State, and got to know those.
Wow! Look at you.
Let me finish.
Live chat, rate that flex by Dapp on a
Let me
scale of 1 to 10, please.
finish.
Thank you.
When you go on the road or you call games and you get to know coaching staffs, they give you what you would call evaluations or breakdowns or opinions of officials.
Yeah.
And it's not just SEC fan bases that are frustrated with Pat Adams. And
Yeah.
I have been 3 feet calling a game, watching him interact with players and coaches, and have seen it firsthand. He is the most arrogant, besides Teddy Valentine. It's all about me. I want my face on TV. I think it's why he reviews so many things. Because they get to see you get to see him from behind and from the front because of the cameras. That's what he wants. He wants full body shots of him, his FaceTime. And again, this isn't about Auburn. This isn't just about Auburn.
Sure.
And, it's him, period, as an official. Whatever.
You got your dog riled up. Your dog's even excited.
My dog's feeling that. Yeah, there might be a deer or something out in the yard. But anyway, yes. That's,
dog doesn't like Pat Adams either. You're training your doggo good. I love that. Auburn was 8 of 20 on layups today. Like, that seems problematic. That seems not ideal.
That's part of what we talked about, things that you could control, not being strong with the basketball, not holding on to the basketball, and then missing way too many bunnies. I mean, you can talk about the what-if factors and still winning by 2, but let's just say Auburn hits 15 out of 20 layups, which doesn't seem stellar. But if you hit 15 out of 20,
you've got 12 out of 20, this isn't close.
It's not close.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing. Broom is a really good finisher around the rim. Usually, Chaney is, and Chad Baker-Mazara and Kelly. It just wasn't there. They didn't finish around the rim. So if you hit 3 or 4 more layups and still have a terrible percentage from layups, it's not close.
Mm-hmm. Todd Pettiford, your player of the game. He's mine, I think, but I think you can make the argument for Chad if you really wanted to.
Well, Pettiford did a really good job in the first half, providing Auburn with offense when no one else could. So that's why Auburn went up 6 in the first half, or they would have been down without Pettiford. And this could have been a whole different complexion of the game. And the second half, he still, hit a couple big free throws, missed that one that I know on the front end of a one-on-one that he's really probably killing himself over right now that he didn't. And Chad Baker-Mazara picked it up in the second half, just like he needed to do. He was not the same player we saw in the first half. He was invisible. What he did in the second half, but without Pettiford's first half, I don't think Chad Baker's second half even matters. That's how important Pettiford was to the game.
He was lights out, man. To where it's like,
what do you end up with, 25?
Yeah, 24. 7 of 30, 5 of 7 from 3. It's just insane. There was a moment, and you and I were texting when it happened. 8, 9 minutes left to go in the game.
It was a play of the game.
Yeah, and Auburn was up by 2, I think, and Georgia had all the momentum. And Chad Baker-Mazara just sinks a 3, a deep 3, and it's like, okay. I sent you a text. If Auburn wins, that shot alone deserves like a full show if we really wanted that. If we really wanted that to happen, little did we know that the last few minutes of the game would be the way that they were. But the CBM, that it wasn't a dagger, but it felt like it at the time. That 3 was crucial, like insurmountably huge.
A lot of times during a game, a shot's bigger than the score. So yeah, it made it a 2-possession game, which is huge. But it also did something from an emotional and momentum standpoint that I think flipped the script for the last 7 or 8 minutes of the game. So you get a shot like that, you hit a shot, and I watched the body language of some of the Georgia defenders, and I saw something that made me think, okay, if Auburn does what they're supposed to now, they can close this out. Because that was deflating and demoralizing. Georgia thought they were going to get the ball back with a chance to tie or take the lead. And now they're dribbling the ball up the floor down 5. Psychologically, dude, you've played sport. That's a big thing. And so some shots are bigger than just the points that they give you.
Yeah, I agree with that. What do we think of Jakai's extra minutes and Jaheim Hudson's extra minutes tonight?
I think both gave good quality minutes. I think they only combined for about 8 or 9 points, so they didn't fill up the stat sheet, but they filled up.
Jakai had 3. Jaheim Hudson had 5.
Okay, so there you go. That's pretty good. That's like Rain Man stuff just off the top of my head, saying combined for 8 or 9.
It's incredible how great you are.
No, I'm just saying that's
the
actually
D1 flex that everybody rated a 10 out of 10.
No, that wasn't. That was to provide insight on Pat Adams. If I just say I heard without giving context for that, it doesn't pull the punch. It doesn't pack the punch, right?
No, you. I mean, really, you're an artist because you always paint the full picture.
I don't just want to go, oh, I heard that. That just sounds so. I mean, I wanted to give a little bit of a peel back the curtain and give a little bit of insight that this is a real thing, that college coaches feel that way about him and Doug Shows.
No, I get it, dude. I get it. I just want to give you your flowers because you deserve them because you're the GOAT.
But Hudson and Howard gave minutes that were very invaluable because they let other players rest. They didn't cost you in a plus minus, I don't believe. And they kind of gave you a little bit of a bench, a deeper bench that you really needed with Cardwell having cramps and Auburn just gasping for air to struggle. It's the first time to me Auburn looked fatigued defensively. They looked tired on defense.
I agree with that.
And that's normally not the case. And so you're not going to see that Saturday with a week's rest and with potentially Broom coming back. Yeah. So,
all right, let's do what we always do to wrap up a show. Next 5 games for the Auburn Tigers. After no midweek, we get some time off. They return to action Saturday night at home. It's going to be electric. Junior day, there's going to be like a bunch of top 100 recruits at this game as well.
College game day.
Yep. 5th time in 5 years. Very exciting. 5th year in a row. Auburn hosts Tennessee. They go to LSU the following Wednesday. Following Saturday, they're at Ole Miss. A few days later, Tuesday, they host Oklahoma. And then that following Saturday on the 8th, they host Florida. Auburn's record over that 5-game span, I say still, I'm calling. I'm saying 5-0.
4-1. I feel really.
We say this every time. 4-1's probably the most likely answer.
Yeah, I feel really good about 4. I feel really, really confident it'll be 4-1, and that'll be okay because Auburn will be 9-1 in the SEC coming out of that stretch.
Yeah, which we would all take. Most likely loss, is it home against Tennessee or at Ole Miss?
At Ole Miss.
Yeah, I'm worried about that one.
Saturday, the roof's going to come off, Neville. I mean, you saw how they played against Mississippi State. Tennessee's a better basketball team, but Auburn beat Mississippi State by 24. I think Auburn, especially if Broom comes back, can beat Tennessee double digits Saturday. Without Broom, I think it's going to be a game similar to like we thought the Georgia game was going to be 8-10, somewhere in there. I don't think Auburn will have a problem at LSU. At Oklahoma at home, that could be ugly. Auburn winning that game, but at Ole Miss. Now, there's a lot that could happen from now until then. Ole Miss might get smoked by Mississippi State tonight in the hump.
Sure.
So we'll see. But yeah, that one has the potential to be the most difficult.
I think them dropping a game to Mississippi State still wouldn't change my answer, though. Like, I still think at Ole Miss would be the toughest of those 5.
True. Unless something happens where you never know the psyche of a team when they lose, if it becomes infectious and they lose a couple in a row. Some teams that happens to. They lose one. This just happened with Georgia. You know, now, of course, they played Tennessee and Auburn, but Mississippi State's their rival, and it's going to be a lot of emotion spent on that floor with that rivalry game like that. Yeah. So we'll see how they respond after that, if it doesn't snowball or get contagious on them. But I agree. That's the one that I predict they could lose. And if, you know, again, you come out of that 10-game stretch 9-1, you take that all day long.
Do we watch another game without Janai Broom?
I don't think so. I think he's back Saturday.
I hope you're right. I think you're right. I think that's the best case scenario. And so we'll see if that happens for sure. For sure. Darrell, how can people check out everything that you've got going on?
Socials are Dapp6410 on X, Darrell Dapp on Instagram. Wednesdays and Fridays with you on Locked On Auburn. And then Sunday nights, 8 o'clock, we go live with Kyle Rush, little Charlie 5 action. Me, you, and him on YouTube and do a little show.
Hey, please like this video. Please subscribe. Also, if you're listening on audio, please leave us a review, especially on iTunes and Spotify. It really helps the show out a ton. Until next time, we'll see you. This has been Locked On Auburn.